Today we're going to be putting together our very first mini gaming server. Essentially, the idea here is pretty simple. I want one central place where I could store all my games. And as you can see, I had a few older hard drives laying around, so I thought we might as well put them to good use. And I gotta say, these turned out to be a lot better than I expected. Now, obviously, we can upload and download our games, keep everything stored in one place, and access our entire library from other devices around the house. But the most impressive part here is that we can actually play some of these games directly inside of a browser. So whether you're using your phone, a tablet, or a desktop PC, we can open our library, select a game, and start playing straight from the browser. And all of these games are being stored right here on our mini gaming server. Recently on the channel we covered the all new B-Link EQI, and even though this is a capable little machine for emulation and even some PC gaming using Intel XeSS and frame generation, this mini PC is really designed more around productivity. So after finishing my testing, I started thinking about what else we could actually do with it. And looking at the hardware and connectivity we have here, turning into a small home server made a lot of sense here, especially when we compare it to what I was using before. Now, I did attempt a similar setup using this older Intel Nuke Mini PC, and honestly, everything works great. We got plenty of ports that we can use for external storage. I even added some additional storage internally, and for a basic home server, it does the job. But there is one pretty big limitation. We stuck with 1 gigabit Ethernet. For small files, that's perfectly fine. But once you start moving larger games or an entire game library backwards and forwards, those upload and download speeds can start feeling pretty slow. And that brings us back to beating EQI. And just to give you an idea with what we're working with here, inside the EQI we got Intel's new Core 3304 processor based on the Wildcat Lake platform, 16 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, and Intel integrated graphics. But for this project, the processor isn't actually the most interesting part, it's the connectivity. And up front, we got a full-size USB 3.2 port, USB-C, and our 3.5mm audio connection. But moving around the back, we got another two USB ports, dual Thunderbolt 4, HDMI, and dual Ethernet. And this is where things get interesting. We got a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet connection alongside a much faster 10 gigabit connection. So compared with the 1 gigabit Ethernet on my older Intel NUC, we got significantly more network bandwidth available for moving our games and other files around. Obviously, your actual transfer speed will depend on the rest of your network and the storage you're using, but we removed that original 1 gigabit bottleneck. We also got M.2 expansion available internally, which gives us another option for adding storage. And because this is such a low power mini PC, it makes a lot of sense for something we might want to leave running for longer periods of time. Now, for the software side of things, you could definitely achieve a similar setup using Windows, but I want to keep things as simple as possible and use an operating system specifically designed around home servers. And there are plenty of options out there. We got free options, paid options, and even some of that offer trial versions. But with some of the recent updates, I really want to give ZimaOS another try. ZimaOS is basically a beginner-friendly operating system designed specifically around home server. It allows us to take ordinary x86 hardware like this B-Link mini PC and turn it into our own private cloud and home server. But instead of dealing with a traditional desktop environment, everything is managed through a really clean web interface. We got storage management, file sharing, Docker applications, and even an integrated app store. And getting ZimaOS installed is actually pretty straightforward. We'll head over to the official ZimaOS website and download the latest image. Then I'm going to use Balena Etcher to flash that image onto the USB thumb drive. But once that's finished, we'll plug the USB drive into the EQI, boot from it, and we're ready to install ZimaOS. Now, I did run onto one little issue here that's worth mentioning. Windows on this particular EQI is installed on the built-in UFS storage, and ZimaOS wasn't detecting that as an installation drive. So I added a small NVMe SSD internally and installed ZimaOS onto that instead. And honestly, this actually works out quite nicely because we're leaving the original Windows installation completely untouched. Windows stays on the internal UFS storage while ZimaOS gets its own dedicated SSD. And once the installation has finished, we remove the USB drive, restart the system, and we're ready to go. Next up, we need to get our server connected to the network. And for this, I'm obviously going wired. We'll plug our Ethernet cable directly into the EQI, boot the system, and ZimaOS will automatically grab an IP address from our router. There's really not much we need to configure at this point. Once ZimaOS gives us the IP address, we can actually move away from the server itself, because pretty much everything from this point onwards can be controlled remotely from another device. Moving over to my desktop PC, we'll open a browser and enter the IP address provided by ZimaOS. The first time you connect, you'll need to create an account and go through the initial setup. But within a few seconds, we are inside the main Zima dashboard. And this is one of those things I really like about this operating system. Everything is incredibly easy to understand. We got our storage, applications, network information, and system controls all available from the main interface. There's no complicated enterprise style dashboard here. Even if you've never built a home server before, you can find your way around this pretty quickly. And just to quickly make sure everything has been detected correctly, into settings we can see our Intel Core 3 304, 16 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, and the Intel Wildcat Lake graphics. We can also manage our network, installed applications, and storage from here. And speaking of storage, this is where those older drives come back into the project. We can connect our drives to the server, and once ZimaOS detects them, we can start using them for our game library and other files. So instead of having games spread across different computers and drives, the idea here is to have one central location where everything can live. Then whenever I need something on another system, I can simply grab it from the server. But that's really only the beginning, because now we can start turning these two into actual gaming server. Going back to the main dashboard, we also get access to ZimaOS App Store, and there are loads of applications available here that we can install with just a couple of clicks. But there's another feature here that's particularly useful for this project. ZimaOS gives us native support for deploying Docker applications using YAML, and that's what we are going to use to add the gaming side of our server. Because for managing our game library, I decided to use something called Retrom. Now, Retrom is an open source game library management system created by J.M. Beresford, and I'll leave links to the project and documentation down in the description because there's plenty of interesting stuff here to read through. But the basic idea is pretty simple. We're going to point Retrom towards the games stored on our server, and it will give us central interface for organizing and accessing the entire library. Now, the installation might look a little scary at first, especially if you never used Docker before, but going back to the YAML section inside ZimaOS, we can input our configuration, map the folders containing our games, and deploy it. Give it a few minutes to download and configure everything, and we're ready to access Retrom. Once we're inside Retrom, we got a few different tabs available across the top. We got File, Library, Platforms, Emulators, and View. The first thing we need to do is to update our library, and Retrom will start scanning the folders we mapped from our server. And depending on how many games we got stored, this might take a little while. But once everything has been picked up, we can also download artwork and metadata for the games, and that immediately makes everything look much better. Instead of digging through folders filled with game files, we now got an organized library with our different platforms and cover artwork. And at this point, this is already doing pretty much what I originally wanted. We got one central game library that can be accessed across our network, but there's one more feature that makes this whole setup much more interesting, and that's the built-in emulator support. From here we can map different emulators to the system in our library, so we could use MGBA for Game Boy Advance, Melon DS for Nintendo DS, and configure the other supported platforms in the same way. Now, I'm still quite new to retro myself, so I'm still finding my way around everything and experimenting with different setups, but this is the part I really want to test. While we're still inside the browser, we can jump into one of our system. So let's go with NES, select one of the games, hit play, and there you go. We actually playing the game directly inside the browser, and that is pretty cool. The game is sitting in our home server, but we are still accessing and playing it from another device through the web interface. And because it's browser based, we are now limited to using a desktop PC. Moving over to a tablet, we can open up the browser, connect to our Retrom server, and there's our entire library. We can browse through our games and even play supported systems directly from here. And of course, we can do exactly the same thing from a phone. So what started as a simple place to store my games has turned into something much more interesting. And of course, there's still plenty more we could do with this setup. We could add tail scale, remote access, more storage, and plenty of other applications, so it's very easy to fall down the home server rabbit hole. But for my first mini gaming server, I'm really happy with how these turned out. We got one central place for our game library, we can access it across the network, and even play some of our games directly through the browser. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Do let me know down in the comments what you're using for your own game library. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.